We have Dr. Madonna Adams. I'm going to go brief on these bios, so please forgive me so we can move fast. Dr. Adams is a Louisiana native who has called Texas home for the last 14 years with over 23 years of experience in the workforce development and public administration. Dr. Adams is a learning leader and workforce strategist who is passionate about creating and delivering effective learning solutions that bridge competency gaps and enhance job performance. She is currently serving as the Director of Learning for the Center for Business Industry Training at Brazosport College, where she is responsible for establishing corporate partnerships along the Gulf Coast area. Okay, we also have Brandy Roberts and Nina Gore, and for some reason I have no bios for y'all.
All right.
So you're going to have to tell us about yourselves today.
Yeah, test it, turn the mics on, make sure you can hear everyone. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Brendel. Thank you for coming. We're going to have a panel discussion talking with some folks from Formosa, Dow, Brazosport. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Thank you. We got Formosa. We got Shawn. But yeah, my background is chemical engineering, worked with Honeywell, Emerson, Baker Hughes, and then Vuvio for about 2 years. So I've been in the industry. I'll pass it over to Nathan. You want to introduce yourself, and we'll go down the panel?
Yeah, my name is Nathan Phillips. I'm leading Vuvio's efforts to grow in Canada. I previously spent about 12 years in oil and gas and the manufacturing space. It's great to be with you all, and I'll say even though the weather is a little bit poor outside, I can assure you it's much worse in Calgary. I had to shovel about 4 inches of snow before I hopped on my plane, so it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for joining today.
Hi, I'm Brandy Roberts. I work for Dow in Texas operations down in Freeport. Been with Dow for 22 years. I held a number of roles. I started in site logistics. I've worked in supply chain, training, operating discipline. Now I support the site on the operational excellence team.
Howdy. Y'all are in Texas, so if any Fighting Texas Aggies in the room?
Whoop!
All right. My name is Nina Gore. I am the site learning specialist at Dow as well, and my background is in public education. I started as a high school English teacher for 7 years, taught senior English, so I had AP English 4 students that are trying to test out of their first year of college, and I also had seniors who have made it to 12th grade but had maybe a first grade reading level. So I have worked with, total different spectrum of learners. And then I transitioned into a digital learning coach. Our district in 2017 went one-to-one, so everybody all of a sudden, there's this big digital learning initiative, and they gave every teacher a Chromebook and said, okay, now go teach, right? So my job was to go in as an instructional coach and say, okay, well, how do we teach now this new generation of learners with these devices, and how do we reframe our curriculum so that it's student-centered and not a lecture-based environment anymore. So I did that for a few years, and then I came to Dow right before the pandemic. Little did I know what was about to happen, and I've been here for about 4 years now. So.
Howdy. I'm Shawn Wehmeyer, training manager at Formosa Plastics. Been there 24 years this June. I've done a little bit of everything. I started off as an operator. Never been in a plant in my life. I got a job because I had a 4-year degree in agriculture economics. Has a lot to do with what I'm doing, right? No, but anyway, I started off as an operator, and then got promoted to ISO PSM safety coordinator, and then got voluntold to go teach at the high school. Taught Introduction to Process Technology and Introduction to Environmental Health and Safety, 2 college courses at the high school, which kind of led into the training center. We opened our training center up in 2014, and I was a training coordinator there until 2020, I think, and then they promoted me as the manager there of the training center.
Perfect, thanks. Would you like to introduce yourself? Okay, all right. And Madonna. Okay, so the title for today is Attracting and Training Today's Workforce. We've talked a lot about attracting. I think we're going to focus a little more on the training in this discussion, but we can take questions from the audience. We've got a bunch of questions. It can kind of go free form, so feel free to expand on anything you'd like. But I'm going to start with Madonna. So we heard Theron say in his talk, the skills gap is real. I think we've been seeing it. So how has the skills gap changed in the past 5 to 10 years, in your view?
Mm-hmm. So, and Theron had, data to support that. I think 10 years ago, they were talking to hiring managers, and the skills gap was at 50-something%. 10 years later, it's now at 69%. We're going in the wrong direction 10 years later. So, you know, over the years, obviously, we haven't been able to figure out how to close that skill gap. And each year, we're seeing, you know, it grow and grow and grow. So even on my side, on the education side, we're steadily trying to deal with that.
You know, I got to jump in here as a former educator, which shout out to all of you fabulous educators in the room that have gone back and forth. Appreciate your blood, sweat, and tears in that space because it matters. But so I'm working with the high school teachers, and we're redesigning curriculum. Our students are in digital breakout rooms. They're creating. They're challenged with, you know, video book reports, and they're doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, we're preparing them for industry. Well, guess what? When I got to industry, how are we training our people? I don't know how y'all are training your people, but I saw binders. I'm like, what is happening? Like, my students know they have all these great skills. They are innovative. They can think, but we're not even giving them a chance because we are expecting them to read a binder. You know, how does that work? So while I'm here, I'm not going to like hijack this whole thing, but also, are we giving them the skills for the job, and are we training them in that way, right? So my students that were really kinesthetic, hands-on learners, should they be reading a procedure out of a binder to understand how a pump works, or should they be out there walking, tracing lines, you know, actually turning the pumps and having conversations and doing it as a hands-on learner because that's how they learn best, right? So these are the skill gaps that I'm concerned about and that I want to keep talking about.
Yeah, 10 years ago, we were fixing to do a big expansion, and that's kind of why we started our training center. We had a elementary school that had shut down, and so Formosa purchased it, and we opened up our training center there. And the local college near us was graduating 15 P-TECH graduates that year. And I'm competing against Dow and everybody else, the plants all around us, you know. And for 15 people when I needed 100 for our expansion plus attrition. So we had to do something. In these 10 years, have we caught up? No. I've been doing 100 just about every year because of promotions, retirements, attrition, you name it. So 55 to 69, like she said, we're going in the wrong direction. We have to change, and we have to do something.
Thank you for that. And perhaps to kind of expand on that, so thinking about the skills gap that's emerged and some of the challenges that exist with training, what would be, in your opinion, the greatest impact of the skills gap for your organization? And maybe, Brandy, I'll start with you. That's okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to kind of answer the last question. So when I first came to work at in the last facility that I worked in, the most senior person had, I think, somewhere between 10 and 15 years. And I worked in that organization for 5 years. And when I left that organization, someone who I brought through the training program when I first started was the most senior person. So someone with less than 5 years experience. So that's the change that I've seen in terms of skill gap in my time at Dow, where it used to be when I came to work for Dow, there was me and a couple other people that had less than 5 years, and everybody else had 20 plus. So we're in danger right now of losing that, what we often call tribal knowledge, collective knowledge. But Dow's been in business for 125 years. We've had a lot of practice at what we do. We've got really good management systems. Most of the time that we get it right. But every once in a while we don't, right? We'll have an unplanned event. And what I've seen when I look at the data is the contributing factors to those unplanned events is more and more often it's a knowledge and skills or a training component. So I think that's where we're seeing the biggest impact in skills gap.
We're seeing what I didn't see in 10 years ago is the lack of engineers. We're lacking a lot of engineers right now, And I think that's a big skills gap that we have right now as far as Formosa goes. Yeah, we always need operators. In 10 years, I think I've trained a little over 900 and something operators, right? We have 2,700 Formosa employees on site. And so in 10 years, 900 operators, well, you can tell that the tribal knowledge is leaving, or they're moving up, right? They're not operators anymore. And the workforce, the operator workforce is getting younger.
Yeah, we talked, thank you for that. We talked a little bit about, using binders, reading from binders, and 5-10 years ago, like how many people had iPhones or whatever it may be in the field. That's changed a lot. So I'll pose this to Madonna, but everyone can jump in. So how does your organization use technology to improve training?
So, on my side of the campus, our instructors are retired from industry, and then they come to teach for us adjunct. So that means most of our instructors are, well, obviously after retirement age. I won't say the word, but yes, very seasoned. They're very seasoned. So they have the binders. They're used to the binders. My challenge in trying to lead them is trying to get them to understand these students that we are dealing with right now will not comprehend that binder that you have. We have to figure out new and innovative ways to get the information across so that the knowledge isn't lost, right? So I came up with this idea. I said, okay, we're gonna move into the VR, AR areas. So we have we're doing some pilots, and we bring in the VR goggles and the software in there, and we have some of our instructors, and then we have some students also in that pilot. So the instructors are like, oh no, this makes me dizzy, this is horrible, and this is not gonna work in training, and blah, blah, blah. And the students are like, yes, this is the best thing ever, right? So I'm standing there like, oh my God, that change initiative is going to be massive, right? So we have incorporated it. We have a virtual reality lab. That's one way we're using technology. We have some process operations software in there. We also are moving into the nursing field. We're inputting software there where we're going to be training, and also we're moving somewhat into workforce development areas, like trades areas, like scaffolding, and some logistics areas where we are incorporating AR and VR in those in that training as well. So that's what we're doing.
Technology, right? Training, it's right, definitely
was that?
Vuvio, definitely Vuvio. But the thing is, it's not generational. When I go to learn, I don't want to read, I can promise you. I want to go to YouTube, and I want to go watch a YouTube video, or I want to go, if I'm learning an SOP, I'll go to the Vuvio thing, right? And I'll watch it, and I'll go through the steps, and then I can teach other people how to do it. I read the books. I read 3-ring binders. I'll never forget. I asked one of my operators, and somebody said their HEB, somebody was working for them or something like that, right? The best operator we had, he was a stalker for HEB. And I asked him, I said, John, you see them 3-ring binders over there? You need to read them. Well, those 3-ring binders, they need to be in video form now. And if they were, I think more people would read them, and you'd have better operators.
So I'm going to kind of add to this in the sense of this culture shift that we're having to ask, because this question, how does your organization use technology to improve training? We're a digital culture at this point, right? Like, everybody has the internet in their pocket all day, every day now, right? So it's more like, what is the value in this technology that we're using? Because I don't want to use technology just to use technology. I want to make sure that it's value added. So my colleagues Nita and Sarah gave a fantastic presentation about how are we creating these equitable moments in industry in our training space. Well, technology can drive consistency. It can take out that if you have a senior person training a younger, potentially female, and they don't think that they belong, that female still has access then to learn how to do their job, how to do it at best practices, and then how to be confident and how to grow because they have the right skills to be successful, right? Without technology, I think we're missing an opportunity here. So I just want to say that, like, oh yeah, we're innovative and we're doing all this stuff. And this is the same conversation I had to have with teachers because all of a sudden we've got 30 Chromebooks in a room and they have a Chromebook and they're like, why are they going to listen to me? I'm like, well, then you better be asking them something that they can't go look up, right? How are you making them think? If they can Google the answer, maybe that's not the right question, right? This is one of my favorites. Well, they have AI that can write their essay for them. Shoot, let AI write the essay for them, then make the assignment. How do you add tone and character to your essay? Like, let's use these tools, right? AI is here. The kids that are gonna grow and do the most with this are gonna be the ones that are using the tools. It's not if or that, it's like, how do we blend it all together to be successful? I get real excited about this.
And using that, bouncing off of her a little bit, our biggest problem in training younger students or younger employees today is they just want to pass the test. They don't understand the concept. And I'm trying to get my trainers to teach the concepts, not that I want you to pass the assessment. I want you to understand the concept of starting this pump or whatever. And then if you understand the concept, you're going to ace the assessment, no problem. But we're so focused in education, in high school and junior high and elementary of, oh, you just need to pass the test, need to pass the test. You know, then they go in there and they pass the test, but then they don't have any knowledge. They just know it for that short period of time. So we have to change that.
Yeah, a difference in competency and, let's say, qualification. Thank you, yeah.
So kind of, I guess, jumping again off some of the discussion and comments, you know, you'd mentioned, Shawn, about, you know, assessing that competence and kind of understanding, you know, their performance in the field. So how do you measure the effectiveness of your training initiatives? I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have everybody that comes in as an operator, I have them for 10 weeks at my training center, right? And one of their assignments before they leave is, I want to know what you liked about the training program, what you disliked about the training program, what you liked about the trainer, and what you disliked about the trainer. And I have a hard time for them, most of them telling me what they don't like. But I said, how are we supposed to improve if I don't know what's wrong, right? And I'll tell you, most of it, and you know, we're working on it, hands-on. I want more hands-on. I want more hands-on. I get that all the time. Do we do hands-on? Yes, but I don't think we do enough, right?
So just to add a little to that, okay, so when you're working with the college, we have all these state regulations where we have to teach a certain amount of hours on a certain topic, and it's very, very strict. But one thing that I appreciate the colleges are doing now is working with the credit side of the college, working with the non-credit side, and merging the two in training programs. For example, several years ago, well, a few years ago, maybe 4 or so years ago, we do new hire training, process operator new hire training. So one of the companies, Dow, really, we revamped the entire program because the program was really structured on credit courses, which means it was a lot of theory. So the businesses start to say, okay, they get the theory, they don't know how to really do the things when we get them there. So so we revamped the program, added some non-credit courses that we had some flexibility on what the curriculum could look like, and added more hands-on into the training. And then we've done that with other companies as well. So being able to manipulate the curriculum to add the hands-on, more of the hands-on training, that's what's going to really prepare them. Of course, they need the theory, but putting their hands on it, turning the valves, actually understanding this is what I'm going to see when I get into the plants has been really, really beneficial for us and our partners.
You can see our focus on hands-on, right? What were you gonna say? Okay, so again, I'm a disruptor here, so this is what I do, sorry. How are we assessing training is my question for everybody, right? If I have a student that we're reading a British literature piece, right? And I know that this student is just talented and he wants to be a tattoo artist when he grows up. And then I have an AP student who is going to go on and be pre-law. Do I give them the same measurement of how they have acquired knowledge? Do I assess them on the same fundamental skills, or do I let them show me what they know in a way that works best for them, right? So I could say to my tattoo artist student, hey, illustrate this for me. What is this common theme from this lesson that we just had? Like, draw it. That could pass as an assessment if I can articulate, or if they can articulate they covered these certain things that I'm looking for, right? Versus maybe, you know, this pre-law student who has this gift of language and can articulate it in a whole different way. So when we're talking about training programs, how are we letting our employees show that they have acquired knowledge and that they have enough knowledge to go do the task? This is kind of the space that I'm obsessed with right now too. So is our training review board preparing them for the job they're gonna go do, or are we just trying to make sure they memorized 125 questions and can recite them back in a room, right? Performance evaluation, yeah, so are you doing those things in the field? Are you, yeah, absolutely getting that feedback. And then how is it weighted in that grading period as well, right? Yeah.
So Nina is very much our artist, art marketing type person, and I'm very boring black and white data. So if I was going to measure the effectiveness of a training program, I would go look at the data. How many times did we attempt, many times did the user attempt to pass the assessment before they were able to pass it? Are we doing our training on time? Let me tell you why that's an effectiveness measure. If I'm not going out and completing the training that's assigned to me, it's probably because I think it's worthless. It's not value added to me. I don't want to do it. So if the end user doesn't see the value in the training, it's probably not effective. So, and then also, like I mentioned earlier, unplanned events that have some sort of knowledge and skills component to it.
Exactly what you're saying. The analytics behind your training, we've calculated if everybody in our plant has to do training, it costs about $2,000 a minute. Okay, is it effective training? Okay, hour training, 2,000 times 60, you know, you can figure it out. Was that effective training? Probably not, right? But that's what you have to look at. And Eric, he sits over here, he's my boss. That's his main goal. Look at the training. When he first came here, we gave him new hire training. He goes, Shawn, we got to do something. He goes, how do you know these answers? And I said, I've been here 20-something years. I'll know the answers. Well, it's not even in the PowerPoint, right? And I said, you're right. It's not anymore. It used to be back about 18 years ago, but, you know, but anyway, but we're looking at that now. You know, I'm glad he came and he told me those things because we kind of get stuck in a rut, and if we get somebody new in and they say, hey, you need to look at this, right, which is a good thing.
And if I may just piggyback on that, Shawn, that if training costs $2,000 a minute, that's not a justification for stopping training because it's expensive. It's making sure that training is valuable. It's so valuable that we need to make sure that we're delivering great training. And I just had a conversation just a few minutes ago about that. If we think that education is expensive, how much are we willing to pay for ignorance? Because when we have a mixed silo, we don't get a chance to say, no, I'm not going to pay for that. We're going to pay for it. Every mistake that's made, we're going to pay for it. We can invest up front in training, or we can pay on the back end for a lack of it.
Great, yeah, great comments. So I believe we have about 5 minutes left, but we'll, one more. And if there's other questions or comments from the audience, please jump in. But I'll pose this to everyone. New people coming on board, younger folks learn differently. Maybe there's not the same kind of mechanical skills that were present with more experienced people. How are you accounting for that? What are you doing for those like hands-on trainings? How are you passing that on to the new generation? And I'll pass it, maybe Shawn?
Sure. Teaching them how to change a bicycle tire, right? We have tricycles, bicycles. That was common knowledge when I was a kid because I wasn't going anywhere unless my bike was pedaling, right? We teach that. We teach how to change the chain out on the bike, the pedals, the left is left-handed threads, right? A lot of kids don't even, and it's not that they just haven't been exposed to it, right? It's not their fault. They hadn't been exposed to it like we were or when I was a kid, right? But those are the things that we have to teach, because whenever, and I tell them I'm selfish. I want all y'all to be successful, right? Because if y'all are successful, then that makes me look good, right? So I don't want you going out in the field and not knowing how to use a pair of channel locks. I mean, you don't use channel locks with two hands, right? And you see kids doing that because there's two handles there, one for one hand and one for the other, right? But we teach those things. We teach what tools are. We do all that. And that way, whenever they go to the field, they have a basic understanding, right? And those are the things that I took for granted that we can't anymore.
I would say we partner with our colleges and invest in making sure that they have the curriculum that, like, our direct feedback from our production leaders was, hey, we want more hands-on learning. So we called up Madonna and made it happen, right? And then also, are we working, and this has been talked about all day, so it sounds like everyone's having the same conversations. Are we doing these community outreach programs? Are we having these workforce development conversations? So I think it's been great to collaborate on this today, and I think we all hopefully have a pocket full of some ideas we can go back and pitch to some people. But this is the space that I hope we can all stay engaged in.
Can I just add one thing to that as we're starting to close? One key thing, we teach this course, the name of it is Gen Z in the Workplace. And we teach it to managers and leaders, explaining to them how to navigate this new workforce. Because the individuals, and Gen Z is from anywhere from age 12 to about 28, 29 individuals in that area. They have a very different outlook on the workforce. So if we continuously try to make them learn and try to retain them in our companies the way we learned and the way we were retained, I mean, growing up, it was, if you could get a job and it could be a long-term job, that was the way to go. Like, everybody wanted, oh, I need to work for this company, I can have benefits, I can retire from one company. This generation is not doing that. They will have 5 to 10 jobs within their careers. So I think changing the mindsets of managers and leaders to understand that what worked for you is not going to work for this generation and this workforce. That's where we've kind of struggled. And we have to make the shift. We can't say, do what I say, and that's why, because I said to do it. That is not going to work with them. That is not going to work with them. They don't care about getting a job where they can stay 30 years. They don't plan to stay at your job 30 years anyway. So it's a mind shift. I know we want to say, even as parents, we want to say, just do it. Get a job. Be successful at this job and just do it. But it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. So we have to adapt. I work with a lot of leaders who say, why can't they just get it? I'm giving them a job. It's a benefit that I'm giving them a job. Well, it is, but you kind of need people to do your job as well. So we have to work together. Everybody's going to have to shift. We're going to have to adapt. There's no way around that.
The days of, yeah, this is what you get paid to do. They want encouragement. They want attaboys, things like that.
For the record, so do your older employees.
So we have a little bit of time for questions, Paul? So I'll pass this down.
Yeah.
I think back there.
Where are we at? No, come on. No, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Good job.
You're
Good
a
job.
great
Thank
job
you.
today. Thank you for being here. All right. Any questions for the panel here? And then we've got one more tabletop, and we'll get you out of here. Yes, ma'am. Let me come to you. There you are.
Just further expanding the conversation of the new generation and what's the most effective way of training them and absorbing the information that is being delivered to them. And we have so many different type of ways of doing that nowadays. We're talking about on-the-job training, actually going to the field, hands-on. We have CBTs. We talked about, instead of operating procedures, doing videos of them where they can watch them. The reality is that we can't do one way only. There needs to be a combination of all of them. But the difficult part and it's very dependent on the type of role that we're talking about, the type of process that they're working on. What is the right mix? And how do you figure that out such that people are not bored watching a video or reading paper for many hours, or overloaded in the field doing on-the-job training, and it's just so much information that they're not able to absorb that either. How do we go about figuring out the right mix of all these different types of methodologies for the best outcome when it comes to training?
So from a educational best practices place, the answer is, and you're going to laugh me off the stage, but it's personalized or individualized learning, right? And it's micro learning. So the trend in education is how do we put a lot of information and break it into small ingestible chunks, right? And everyone in this room today has referenced YouTube because that's really what we do. We watch the video, we pause it when we need to. So how do we take training and learning and put it into these ingestible bite-sized moments so that it's not like, well, we trained you, we gave you all the info, but it's that conversation of continuous learning. It's a culture of learning. And then also the individualization, like, again, recognizing what their strengths are and what their skills are, and then giving them opportunities to use that to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding. Now, how we're going to do this, I don't know, but that's just the right answer.
Snippets.
Snippets. Shawn.
It's interesting that you brought that up because it reminded me of a conversation I had I think it was just last week, with a group of learning management folks, and we were kind of sharing some things that we have done to help our training coordinators on site learn how to do the tasks associated with their roles. Well, one of the things that we did at Texas Operations is we created what we call the proficiency playlist, and what it is it's a series of videos, short videos, that they can go watch on how to issue credit in the learning management system, how to assign training to a user, that sort of thing. And the idea was, and I thought I was being really clever, the idea was, what's kind of like TikTok, as everybody's doing TikTok now, 3-minute videos. But we were having this conversation, and I'm saying, well, this is how people want it now. They want these short videos. And someone in the group was like, actually, I would rather have a written document, because if I'm watching a video, I'm just skipping past, trying to get to the place that I need to be, whereas in a document, I can just do a search for the keyword, and I can find right where I want to be. So that was a learning for me. I was like, I didn't think that really anybody learned that way, but apparently there are some still that learn that way. So,
Right.
So a bias, I learned that I had a bias that I need to be aware of.
And Nina will tell you, she has the education background, and, my daughter and my wife both do too, so I can tell that everybody learns different, and you have to put every way out there because your audience is they're all not the same.
One more thing. Okay, so here's the thing. So back in college, they show us these videos and they say, this is how we founded education. And does anybody know this story? The Ford Motor Company is actually what inspired how we do school, right? So schools were built because they wanted to optimize factory workers. They were like, hey, we need people and we need them quick. So we're going to put them in rows. We're not going to let them talk to each other, and we're going to spit out some product, AKA trained professionals, right? And we still follow that model today. And how much has our industry changed, and how much the skills you guys are saying in this room that you need from your employees is not the ability to assembly line manufacture something. You want creative thinking, you want troubleshooting, you want critical thinking skills. How are we getting that from multiple choice assessments, right? And yes, and I'm like, it came from industry, like our classroom model came from industry. Well, just think, if industry can come together, we can change this too, right? This is where our policies are made. This is where funding comes from. So let's have these conversations. Let's go all the way to the top. Because if you're a parent and you have watched your kids struggle to learn how to read, but they're in a class of 32 kids and there's one teacher, right? This is the reality in most of the schools in the state of Texas. I don't know what it looks like across the globe, but love to talk to you about it if you're in a different place. We don't have the support that we need for these foundational skills to be successful. So this is my hope for industry, because I'm still obviously very passionate about this. We have to change how we learn, and it has to start at the top. And I think industry is the solution. So y'all help me make this happen.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our panelists? If not, let's give them a round of a hand. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.